Our lovely executive editor is coming back up to introduce our lovely poet, Megan. M.D. Freeman.
Megan. I first met Megan in 2005. She was living across the street from me. And, I knew her as an amazing educator, amazing neighbor, amazing friend, and generally amazing person. I had no idea that she wrote poetry and could write poetry the way that she can write poetry, or that she wrote at all. So it was a real surprise for me when she started her blog, and I went there, and it was good stuff. So it's really, this is a special one for us. It's special for Megan too. This is her first book coming out. And any publishers out there that are interested in poetic children books, fiction, she's got another one that she's getting ready to publish. So I don't know how far away.
From your lips to God's ears.
How far away is that? Is it ready, or is it?
It's in the revision process.
It's in the revision process. So hey, somebody might want to grab that one. So Megan's poetry. It doesn't really remind me of Mary Oliver, but I'd like to use Mary Oliver as a comparison, because Mary Oliver has two traits in her poetry which I really feel Megan embodies very well. One is accessibility. You can read it, and on the surface, it totally makes sense and flows. And the second one is the depth that Mary Oliver brings to each and every work that she does. So it's that combination of subtle meaning with a surface that's easy to get to that really makes it outstanding. The big difference, I think, is that Mary Oliver writes about her relationship with the world of nature, and Megan writes about the nature of her relationship with the world. So I'm going to bring Megan up now for us to enjoy. How about a big hand to welcome Megan Freeman to the stage?
As I was trying to imagine what this might be like earlier today, the only analogy I could come up with was, this is going to be like attending my own funeral. Because the only scenario in which I could imagine all of you being here in one room is if I had died. But this strikes me as a lot better, because I get to be here and I'm still alive. So, and hopefully I'm not about to die in front of you all. This book has been such an extraordinary experience from the very beginning up to this very moment, and it's so rewarding to be standing here in front of you with Ginny here, who did the author photo, and Jared, who read it cover to cover and gave me such a beautiful blurb, and Mary and Markaya. Chuck is not going to be here, but we're doing an event with him tomorrow, and he did the cover art. He also lives on the same street that Mary and Markaya and I used to live on. So this is a Lafayette project in a big way. Yeah, it's a very important street in Lafayette. Someday they'll have tours. And many of you in this room have been readers of mine from the very beginning, and encouragers, and that's no small thing. And there's absolutely no question that without a whole bunch of you, this would never have happened, and I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be living such a joyful, happy life, because you've given me so many gifts. So I'm delighted if this is, in some small way, a gift I can give back to you. And I'm going to start by beginning at the beginning, not the beginning of the book. I'm going completely out of order in the book, but this is the beginning, and it's called Conception, 1967. She woke to webs of valentines strung across the ceiling above their married 2 years, wedding night virgin's double bed. I waited patiently, weighing different combinations of fatherly eloquence and motherly love, trying on traits like discount shoes, leaving them in piles in the aisles of infinity. He hung them while she slept, romantic spider with big thick hands, spinning silk of paper and Scotch tape. I waited patiently, studying tintypes and photographs, maps of Germany and the British Isles, reading names and passports, ignoring the stillness and impossibility of time. The red hearts circulated gently in the easy February air, whispering promises that would, as it turned out, last a lifetime. I waited patiently until I began, exploding in a symphony of cytoplasm, splitting and multiplying in deafening combinations of electrical impulses, crafting instantly my list of things to do and people to love, already onto the second page before my mother's breathing slowed and her laughter bounced off woven paper hearts to germinate the nucleus of me. So it was interesting going through this book with an eye toward reading it out loud. I started to look for some themes and think about ways to organize what I might read for you tonight. And one of the themes that came to me is home. I write about home a lot, apparently. And I've lived in some really interesting places and called some really interesting places home, including Northeast Los Angeles and Narvik, Norway, which is above the Arctic Circle, and Columbus, Ohio, and Lafayette, Colorado. So I'm going to read a few home poems. Flower memory. I grew up in the shadow of a paint-splattered rock, the city of roses' ugly stepsister town. The streets were lined with tassels and diplomas and tissue paper flowers spray-painted pink and green. Sycamore trees grew velvet bark and balls of soft seeds easily broken open with nail-bitten thumbs. Jacaranda blossoms tangled in our skates, and we balanced on the precipice between visibility and death, trying to impress our younger comrades. We carefully picked magnolia blossoms, avoiding their tender petals with our dangerous hands, stroking the seed pods like pincushions, sticky with honey, or pomegranates offered and eaten by foolish goddesses. In bed, in the dark, with the counterweighted windows propped open by dictionaries and copies of Little Women, the echo of the marching band ricocheted off institutional walls, providing a cadence by which to fall asleep. The scent of gardenias placed in bowls on windowsills wafted over our dreaming faces, and after the drums died away, the coyotes' cries began. Neighbors sought their dogs and cats, often with success, though occasionally found half dead in the driveways with puncture wounds around their ribs. We were never afraid of Virginia Woolf, and we inherited the wind of the spoken form, which we then transformed into gales of hope that blew our spores in all directions to root in the shadows of rocks far away. It's 1983 again, and I'm 15 and a half, learning to live above the Arctic Circle in half years of darkness and light. Reflectors on our clothes for hiking up to school, Aurora Borealis skating overhead as we skated down below on frozen fields. The most desolate of years, with no one but Johns Irving and Updike for company, and the post carrying 3 weeks of wishes across 10,000 miles of homesick, intimate relationships with chocolate and one-night stands with cigarettes, playing at being human, masquerading in the snow. I stuck pins in the bubbled wallpaper to hold the cards and letters from farther away than Christmas with no return address. Divorce in California takes time. Growing up in Los Angeles, city of tamales and lucky cats waving from the top shelf, pasty white girl towering over brown friends with killer serves on the court, white bread alphabetized between Fernandez and Gonzaga, power lines draping the streets like crepe paper and piñatas, hills green for 20 minutes in the spring, and then wildfire ashes falling on the playground at recess, commingling with the smog like cinnamon and sugar on a churro. We washed our hair every day, rinsed and repeated. Nighttime helicopters with searchlights like Hollywood, chuttering and chopping through the never-dark ET sky, glowing from movie stars' color TVs somewhere above the big white sign, behind their big white gates where they washed the famous cement out from under their fingernails. Eyes straight ahead through the park, smell of funny smoke from the amphitheater, navigating between the cholos and the perverts to get to algebra before the second bell, safety in numbers. Homecoming game in the Rose Bowl makes me want to brag. We were so cool, kicking Franklin's ass in our imaginations, spending New Year's Eve in the gutters, making out and waiting, watching to confirm that our float was the bitchinest of them all. City looks cleaner, tidier from the air above LAX. Rusty Spanglish dusts itself off as the cabin pressure changes in my brain, while cravings for Ernie Juniors and Casabianca mix on my tongue. The spongy air washes over my high-altitude dry skin, absorbing oleander and eucalyptus and sea salt and leaf blower. Divorcing California takes time. This is the last home poem. It's called Suddenly Around the Bend. The Colorado River Valley appears like a banquet spread for our homecoming. Utah mesas recede in the rearview mirror like distant temples where we were exchange students, and we are coming home, although we've left home 3 states back and felt at home in many hospitable berths. But this valley of green ranches and Bob Ross meadows, sloping from generous hills and swirling in the shallows of the mud-brown water, this valley I notice. The map carves it up, yet when seen from the road, it simply beckons and stretches like a friendly cat, come from the porch to greet the wanderer and welcome her back. My boots will rest under a bed here tonight, and I'll ponder the question of home tomorrow. So, I've been married many, many times. And one of the advantages of that is it provides fodder for poetry. So I thought I would read some marriage poems. In the name of harmony and conciliation, in the space between the marriages, in an effort to respect the stories other people invent and then believe, the fictional fiction, the manufactured manifestation of a million grains of rice, scattered like these words, left out for everyone to see and judge, or ignore and think not of. But the vanity and challenges of unbroken hearts and the fields of boulders over which we scramble away from each other shift. The little poem's been packed away to Poland, crammed in cattle cars and denied all food and drink. We are done. Is anybody at the soundboard? There's just a tiny bit of feedback that I'm hearing.
Yeah, it just started.
Thank you. Thank you, nice sound person. Okay, here's another marriage poem. This one's a little happier. This is called Setting, Occasion, Action. Chest, yours, concave, curled around spine, mine, convex. Arm draped over ribs, tucked under breast, terminating in fingers interlaced right and right. Safe, I graze freely over the acreage of your heart, protected from predators, though the scars of battles fought and lessons won still smart in the bright sunlight. And so you tuck your knees more tightly into mine, left arm up to touch my hair, face in my neck, voice in my ear, Your kiss, your whisper frees me, so nourished am I in the sanctuary of your embrace. Deserted. Circus bodies on the playa contort through hoops of fire. This powerlessness, it's not my scene. You drive west toward kindred spirits, leaving kin behind to call out Mephistopheles, daring the devil to show his face, looking for God in heat waves on the horizon, in psychedelic spirit walks blistering the earth. I pray behind the tulip beds tended by the children last fall, while you carve your cathedral out of sand, where no life exists, no need to hang the food bag, except in this one holy week when pilgrims trek, carrying water and contraband across state lines. It's not my scene. To tempt temptation in the swirling heat and the twirling bodies and the dancing fire and the thieving winds, must remember to come home and let the dog out. Walk carefully past the singing gypsies with their dancing bells and their sticky fingers, away from the open arms of the painted women for whom I do not exist, despite the indelible impression of my body on your skin. My wife's a poet, it's not her scene. Away from the edge of life as you know it, you cannot survive the fall unscathed, unscarred, unforgiven. The desert will drink us whole, leaving only shards of glass and wooden splinters where we were drops of oil. It's not my scene. The very much of alone wears me like a coat, a vapor of fog surrounding the surface area of myself, pushes past gravity into the absence of his height and breadth, the trunk of him in the center of the forest of not here. Now wraps in skeins of voids, pinning bows and arrows between my arms at my sides, leaving only space for fingers to caress quietly, keeping small company in the interim. And this is the last marriage poem. Why I read fiction.
That said it all.
Thank you. Why I read fiction. You've no interest in things that never happened to folks who don't exist. But every time I turn the final page, the end, a timber bar across a castle door lifts up. The drawbridge of a slightly broken heart slides down, inviting you across a brackish moat into my fortress of nonfiction love, where I live and breathe and wait only what's true, only for you. So it has always struck me, a lot of times when I get the urge to write a poem, I think it's the same urge that photographers get to take a photograph or painters get to paint a painting. It's the awareness of the experience of a moment that I want to capture. And so I have some moment poems. Have you ever been alone in a city, secretly writing the names of everyone who loves you under the jacket of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Propped up and weeping against a motel pillow, hiding from the motel maid? Has the phone ever rung just as you were writing the name of the boy in the Spanish class you took as a senior because your major was complete and your boyfriend was in Mexico? Have you ever let it ring and ring and ring and ring until at last it stopped and the little red light started blinking and clicking? Have you ever ridden in a getaway car next to a boy, an older boy who didn't know about Mexican infidelities, speeding toward the coast, trailing ribbons of colored light and bouncing a dog-eared copy of The Stranger off the dashboard? Has your heart ever stopped exploding in the face of a freedom never mentioned by guidance counselors or college professors, unfolding like a map of Route 66 and a full tank of gas, the promise of kitsch and kinship just around the bend. Welcome. You are here. Reading your name in my inbox. Under the canopy between my pelvic peaks, cumulus clouds turn themselves inside out, exhaling convex puffs that multiply and expand to settle in the basin of my belly, waiting with little sighs to be called to the surface by the moment of your tongue on my lips, your breath on my neck, your voice at the base of my skull, rum tumbling slowly down ladders of vertebrae to melt in the marrow of my core. You should send that email. Lessons on sleeping alone. There has to be a trick. The virgin mattress, still warm from the Eastern European breath of chiseled delivery men. Crisp queen sheets tucked tightly beneath the nickel-plated headboard, posed like a crown on Coronation Day. I always used to leave the extra pillows on one side, but now they seem too hopeful, and the wasted space too hollow and full, too ominous. And I begin to understand the older women I know who sleep in single twins, no pretense, no desire for company, carving a world on their own terms with no room left for lovers. Then my daughter falls asleep reading in the middle of the bed, covers pushed asunder and limbs splayed open and out like 9 years ago, cradled and free. And I see she's kicked the extra pillows onto the floor so that her whole dancing self can claim the space for dreams. Note the critical difference between waiting for something off to one side and the choice to make a little room later on if I feel like it. Okay, so this one, there are people in this room who are well aware that for the past 32 years, I have had a wicked crush on the same author. Marriages come and marriages go, but this love is forever. This poem is called The Famous Writer in the Plastic Frame. He looks jaunty and slightly wicked as he smolders out of his low-resolution place of honor next to the hand soap pump on the vanity. No doubt confusing the Christian woman who cleans my house each month and my daughter who wonders who that man in the bathroom is. Yet, I'm pretending he's my boyfriend seems to satisfy her, and she resumes building Lincoln log civilizations across the kitchen floor. I am not a stalker, though I fixate on his picture and imagine having sex with him on top of the washing machine at the summer house on Nantucket, an unexpected tryst en route to the backyard barbecue, raw steaks forgotten on the shelf next to the Dreft. He takes me despite propriety and the actual difference in our heights. On the back of boot jackets, he is much taller. Getting warm in here. Here's another moment poem. Continental breakfast. The fruit on my plate arranges itself around the virtuous bran muffin and the pious hard-cooked egg. Watermelon nestles next to cantaloupe stained by strawberries. Grapes are conspicuously absent, but the requisite honeydew occupies its watery place on the periphery of the plate. Acolytes digest the words of the keynote speaker while chewing and spewing into notebooks and laptops, and I, loner in the corner, hoard the pineapple, like little yellow bricks of redemption, saving its pulpy rewards until every other morsel is consumed and the PowerPoint presentation comes to its impotent climax and the speaker sits down to sign his books. And then, only then, do I allow it to traverse my tongue and lodge firmly between my pencil and my teeth, receiving absolution in its transubstantiation from simple fruit to momentary miracle. For those of you who are Coloradans, I wrote this poem. I work at some schools up in the mountains, and I get to drive I-70 often through the Vail Valley and into Eagle County. And there is this amazing bend coming down and turning as you're just coming into East Vail that has a huge aspen stand. And you know, they're all one organism, and it's spectacular, and this poem is from that spot. Driving past autumn aspen groves. The uphill splash of tangerine bursts out of the darker evergreen to shimmer and pose like the most audacious dancers in a ballet of such grand scale, even truckers with their tins of chew are rendered dumb and forget the details of the road, as we are all brought closer to whole, closer to absolved, slightly more full of grace than we were at summer's end. Here's what's real. On this page, with the shit and the blood and the drool that comes from the messy acts of human life, exactly from the beginning, with meconium and amniotic fluid and shreds of placenta, and the start of the beginning, with semen and mucus and sloughed off uterine trash seeping from our bodies, as if it isn't obvious that metaphor is fact, and symbols are simply accessories we hang around our throats and dangle from our ears. Here's this poetry. Here's what's real. Outside the porcelain facades of professionalism and accepted norms, our chemical selves in all our juicy mess leave trails of truth shimmery as any snails. So the great joy of my life is being Fiona Grace's mama, and this poem was inspired by a moment we had when she was a wee lassie learning to swim, and it's called Fish. Her legs finally rejected the underwater ground, defied habitual gravity and flotation, and kicked the length of the pool, navigating the deep and the shallow. Her face remembered the water of the womb, and her gentle eyes opened to the magical blue marble underwater world. Pride dripped from her lashes, blue reflecting blue rimmed with chlorine. 7 summers of swimming lessons and road trip motel pools puddled in an aquatic convergence on the deck around her feet. Mama, it's just like flying. And this is another love poem to my girl. This is called A Fierce, Uncomplicated Love. Fueled first by the intensity of shared blood and oxygen and uterine real estate, and then by the added miracles of profound regard and common joys, this love is unrivaled, free from issues of power or sex, finances or careers. And now, as we sit in the ballpark and eat our soft serve cones and scream when the ball flies over the center field wall, stomping our feet with the contagious fervor of the true fanatics that surround us, my ribs swell and expand against the context of my skin, stretched this time to contain the softest, most ferocious tenderness, reflected in the golden moon of your face, your chin raised for a sticky kiss, your devotion crystallized in your sturdy arms as you wrap me in the ecstatic squeeze of camaraderie, knowing and being known, loving and being loved. For this poem, it helps to know that who Maria Mitchell was. She was a 19th century astronomer, considered by many the mother of astronomy, the first woman astronomer, which of course she wasn't. Women have been looking up forever, but you know. Her dad gave her a telescope, and that made all the difference. And she discovered a comet. She lived on Nantucket. She discovered a comet, and the King of Denmark awarded her a medal for that great feat. And on the medal, it was engraved this phrase, which is the title of the poem. And the phrase is, "Not in vain do we watch the setting and rising of the stars." So that's what her medal said for discovering her comet. And I took that and used it for the title of this poem, also about my girl. Sorry. This poem has taken on new meaning since my daughter was accepted to a school and may move to Singapore. So we'll just put that out there. I am Maria Mitchell, watching my daughter's comet tail streak across the sky. I stand firmly in the dark on my 19th century planet, searching for a telescopic glimpse of her glimmering petticoats. My darling comet streaks on into the riddles of the future. I stand on rooftops peering upward. Telescopes, corsets, button hooks, these are the tools of my days. Her unfathomable technologies are yet to come, beyond comprehension, undecipherable tongues which she'll speak fluently. She will pause on earth to stand at my headstone and marvel at all I could not have imagined. Oh, how she would have loved, she'll say, gathering up her fiery skirts and orbiting off into the celestial dark, racing to make the numinous known. And I'm going to end with the very first poem from the book, and this one actually, it helps to have a little tiny bit of context too. Daphne was the nymph who was chased through the forest by the god Apollo, and she was rescued by her father, who turned her into a laurel tree. That was the best he could do. And so Apollo, that's why laurel wreaths at the Olympics and things, it was Apollo honoring Daphne. So this poem is called Not Unlike Daphne. Forsythia grows from my broken bones, unkempt boughs of raucous sunshine, noisy herald of inevitable spring, nothing more, nothing left but bony branches budding. As Persephone steps toward the light, I bloom into 1,000 yellows, exploding new beginnings. Thank you so much for coming.